Hey there. So I wanted to make this video today about this concept of taking space. And I wanted to make it because it's something that wasn't available to me when I first started out on my inner journey. I didn't know that there was even this thing you could do called taking space, where if someone asks you a question and I thought you just had to respond right away, or a decision opens up for you like a new path, and you have to choose, do I go this path or do I go this path? I thought you had to choose right then and there. I was always in this time crunch, and slowly but surely over the years I've realized that this new concept of taking space really does help in your life. Let's imagine that two people get in an argument. One sends an angry email to the other person. Now, the other person, in the heat of the moment, is just about to hit send and respond with an angry email right back. But she remembers this concept of taking space. And so she decides to let things cool off. A day goes by and she's had time to meditate and reflect on the issue. She might feel completely different about things and write something less harsh, taking the higher road instead. B, some outside force may have intervened, and now the issue has been solved without any more discussion between the two of them. Or C, a myriad of endless potentialities, and almost guaranteed that they'd each be more harmonious than the angry, heated email. When I take space or give something space in my life that I feel needs it, I ask my divine self or higher self or inner being, all the same thing, just different names, to please help and intervene in this situation with a harmonious and ease filled solution. I'll share a story with you about this one time when my business partner and I had found a sponsor to sponsor our upcoming event. Now, it took this sponsor, we sent over the contract to our sponsor to get this agreement going and get things moving, and they weren't sending it. And a week went by, and we pushed for them to go ahead and send the contract and send over the money so that we could get things going to get this event, to start producing this event. Well, we never saw the contract, but money came through. They sent over the money, but it wasn't the full amount of money. It was only half. So this was upsetting, obviously, to us, because in the initial meeting, we had discussed a certain amount, and that's the amount we shook on, but it's not the amount that our sponsor sent over. So, of course, I was frustrated, and I wrote this long, long email, and I was, just flustered and upset and just wanting to demand respect. And my business partner and I took a minute to breathe and talk about it. And we decided that probably the best route is just wait on the email and, give it some space. So we gave it space and we prayed for a harmonious solution. And what ended up happening was, well, we knew that the ball was in their court. They knew what they were supposed to do. They weren't doing it. I had sent a text to have him call me, and it just never happened. So the space that we gave basically just allotted for us to go our separate ways, because we never ended up hearing from them. Now, this was obviously meant to be. It sounded like they didn't want to move forward and they were only willing to give so much. We had showed up to that point with an ad and advertising that we had promised, and so it was like they had already received some type of compensation. And so I actually felt like it was pretty even at that point anyway. And so this space allowed for them to gracefully back out, for us to gracefully move forward. And instead of bickering, and some people might want to try to sue or try to get in a fight about it, and like I said, demand respect, we just pulled back and said, you know what, we let it go, and we're just going to move forward. And we used that time to find new sponsorships and work with people who actually want to move forward with us. So I want to share this story just as an example of what it looks like to give something that space where when the ego would rather grip on and try to figure it out and make it work and see why that other person isn't wanting to do what you want them to, basically, or do what they agreed to do. Um, Instead, you just let it go. You loosen that grip. You give that spaciousness to the situation and pray or ask or however you want to call it. Use the forces that are around us, our team, our metaphysical team, if you will, our guides, angels, those who would like to help us from this other side, and just allow things to work out harmoniously. If that is your intention, then that absolutely can be. Something that you wouldn't want to confuse with taking space is avoidance. And so let's use an example of someone who hasn't spoken to a friend in many years, but their heart is calling them to reconnect, rekindle that friendship with the friend. And they know that a conversation would be in order and to make things harmonious again, but that conversation they know would be confronting, and that scares them. So they might say, well, I'm just going to keep giving it space and see what happens. Well, this is really them, covering up what is actually calling them, and that is their inner guidance saying, hey, why don't we contact that friend again? But they're saying, oh, well, it's just, keep avoiding is really what they're doing. So, really, in any situation, we have to listen to our inner guidance or our broader perspective self. It's that voice that's guiding us, because to know when to take space, you have to be listening to that part of you. You have to be aligned and be willing to hear that guidance. So, in another situation, you might be guided to never speak to that person again, and that's okay too. But it's just really about listening to that part of you. Another place that you might feel called to take space is away from family members. But this could also look like organizations, religious institutions, places that you've spent a lot of time and maybe grew up with, or maybe have just spent years with, or however long. Sometimes we just need to take space and time away from these particular places, because we are growing and evolving, especially these days, at rapid rates. And to really know ourselves, it's good to get out of specific dynamics for a while to realign with our own truth. Sometimes we can really get caught up in these, they call it groupthink, or even just like with family, it can be dynamics that you played out when you were like 5 or 10, and now you're 30 or 50, and you're still playing out those same dynamics with your siblings. So to break away from those old dynamics or belief systems, it's good to take that time and space away to yourself and be on your own, so that you can know who you are outside of those institutions, or family or relationship dynamics. I've worked with people whose families have a hard time with them taking space away from the family. And in these instances, it's important to communicate to your family that it's not them. It's not about them. It's not that you don't love them or care about them. And that's not why you're taking the space. You're doing it for yourself and to find yourself. And in our society today, it's not always commonplace to do this, especially if it's a year or years that you need the space. But you know what you need, and as best you can to communicate with your family that it's not about them, it's really about you and what you need. That's all you can do. And if they cannot understand, that's that's their journey to go on. When you take this time to yourself and grow and evolve and change, on your own inwardly and in your own life, then when you come back to your family and those family dynamics or the institution or your religious place of worship, you it will then be your mission to stay true to who you've now become, because those old dynamics will come back in and test you. It's like those old ruts. It's kind of, it can be easy to go back into those old ruts and dynamics. Maybe it's a sibling that you just bicker with, and taking the space you've grown out of and evolved out of that. You don't do that with the people in your life now, but when it comes back to that sibling of yours, it comes back and tests you, and you have to stay true to this new being that you've evolved into. This last example I'll give is when you're faced with a fork in the road. And this happened to me recently where I was surprised. I really thought I'd be going in the same direction for a while, maybe years. And something happened, the perfect storm, if you will, to where it gave me an opportunity to take a step back and make a new choice if I wanted to. I could continue in that direction, or I could move in a new direction. And I knew that, first of all, it was kind of a shock, really, that I would, or could or would be moving in a new direction. And so I really needed to take time and space for myself to meditate, align with my truth, my greatest truth. And so I took many days to make this decision, since it had to do with someone else and who I was working with. And I took that time. I went to a nice mountain town in Colorado with some friends, and we were all just chilling out. And it was just the perfect place for me to get quiet, listen to myself, pull angel cards, and meditate and see what answer I got. And I always, say I would like to know my highest truth, what's for the highest good of me and the highest good of all. Really clarifying what kind of answer I'm looking for. You can ask, because your intention is so important and it means so much. It makes a huge difference. And so you can, say any intention. What career is going to make me the most money? What relationship is going to have the best sex life for me? I mean, you can have any intention. And for me, over the years, I realized for me, it's most important to be aligned with my soul's truth and my highest truth, and go from there and make my choices from that place. So that's why I always call in that aligned intention. So this weekend that I spent, it took me days to come to a solid decision within myself. And I met up with this person those few days later to discuss that I'd be moving in a new direction. And that's just what I was called to. I'm just following my guidance and seeing how I could support that person as much as I could, to help her move forward in the same direction on what we had been working on together. And it was kind of cool because just the other day because it was hard for her, it felt like a breakup of sorts. But she did tell me, and we've been working together to make sure everyone feels good and empowered, even though it was kind of a shock for us both. So she told me that the night before we met up, um, she was sitting on her couch, and she had been just in her own process for the last few days, as I was making my decision. And she was kind of distraught, but she was sitting on the couch, and she saw a spirit come to her. And the spirit was my higher self. And she knew it. She could feel it. She could see me. And my higher self put my hand on her back and just comforted her and just gently let her know that I would be moving in a different direction and that everything was going to be perfectly okay. And she said that it did. Although it made her sad, of course, to know the news, it brought her some comfort to know what was happening and what my ultimate choice was going to be. Kind of prepared her for our conversation we would have the next day. So I just love this story because it shows that by me really taking the time, stepping back, not making a choice because, and I did, I felt some pressure to let her know right away because I knew she needed to keep moving on things and send some stuff out and do things. And it was kind of like, okay, what do you want to do? But I knew I had to take some time. I could have taken weeks. And if that's how long it would have taken me, I would have been okay with that just because, and of course, in conversation with the other person and communicating, but just to take that time because what happened was so beautiful. So, these harmonious solutions and ways of transitioning are possible when we create this spaciousness in our life and use space according to our higher guidance. My intention is that this video brought you some kind of insight or inspiration. Stay tuned for my upcoming videos, and I'm wishing you a beautiful everything. Sending so much love, and see you next time.